Lyra had always believed that alien men were unworthy of her attention. She had seen their arrogance, their pride, and their tendency to manipulate those around them. In the floating cities of Lithera, men were praised for their strength and intellect, yet in her eyes they lacked the qualities that truly mattered: honesty, compassion, and respect. Lyra had devoted her life to science and exploration, trusting knowledge more than any creature she had ever met. Love or companionship had never seemed necessary. She moved through the corridors of her research station with the ease of someone entirely at home in her environment. The station, perched atop a high plateau of shimmering minerals, overlooked a landscape that was both beautiful and dangerous. Volcanoes spewed rivers of molten rock far below, while clouds of bioluminescent insects glimmered in the twilight. For Lyra, this alien world was not just home. It was her sanctuary. Despite her accomplishments, Lyra often felt the subtle gaze of alien men watching her, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and challenge. She ignored them. Conversations with male colleagues had long since become exercises in patience. She had learned to respond with politeness but never with trust. Her focus was elsewhere. One morning, while reviewing data from her latest survey of Lithera's ice plains, Lyra noticed an anomaly on the planet's outskirts. It was a faint distress signal, something that did not originate from any Litheran craft she recognized. Her curiosity piqued. She reported the finding to the Council of Scientists overseeing her work. The council deliberated, their discussion filled with speculation and concern. "It could be a malfunctioning probe," one elder said, "or perhaps a ship lost from another planet. We cannot ignore it." Lyra, though skeptical of the council's concerns, was tasked with investigating. The journey would take her across regions of Lithera she had never explored. Her thoughts wandered to the men who might have been assigned to accompany her, and she silently thanked the council for choosing her to go alone. She preferred the silence of her own company to the chatter of men who often underestimated her abilities. Weeks later, she prepared her craft for departure. The sky above Lithera was a swirl of violet and orange, illuminated by the twin suns that rose together in the distance. Lyra adjusted her gear, reviewing maps and environmental scans. The route would be treacherous. Ice fields, jagged cliffs, and sudden storms awaited her. Yet she felt a familiar thrill of anticipation. Danger had always been a companion, but it had never been enough to frighten her. As she descended toward the icy plains, the distress signal grew stronger. The source appeared to be a small spacecraft, partially buried in snow and ice. Lyra landed a safe distance away, taking in the wreckage with a careful eye. The vessel was foreign, its design unlike any Litheran craft she had encountered. The hull was dented, frost covering much of its surface, yet there were signs of life inside. Lyra approached cautiously, scanning for hazards. The air outside the ship was thin but breathable for her species, and the temperature was harsh, forcing her to rely on her environmental suit. Inside the wreck, she found a human, a species she had only heard of in rare transmissions. The man was unconscious, his body weak and bruised but alive. Her first reaction was skepticism. Humans were fragile compared to Litherans. They lacked natural defenses both physically and socially. Yet something about this one drew her attention. Perhaps it was the way his chest rose and fell with steady rhythm, or the faint warmth emanating from his body despite the cold. Lyra carefully lifted the man onto a medical platform she had brought, activating healing systems to stabilize him. The equipment beeped softly and the glow of the monitors reflected off her focused eyes. She worked methodically, ignoring the faint pulse of worry that tugged at her mind. What would she do if he survived? Could a human truly adapt to Lithera, let alone survive its harsh landscapes? Hours passed before the man stirred. His eyes fluttered open, revealing a gaze that was sharp and attentive, yet uncertain. Lyra observed him silently, noting his awareness and reaction to the alien environment. He did not panic, did not yell for help. He simply looked around, taking in his surroundings with careful observation. I am Lyra, she said finally, her voice calm but firm. You are on Lithera. You are safe for now. The human blinked, processing her words. Lithera? He asked, his voice hoarse. I did not expect... He paused, swallowing. I did not expect anyone to find me. Lyra's expression remained neutral, but inwardly she noted his composure. Many alien men would have panicked, their pride making it difficult to admit weakness. Yet this human, despite his frailty, showed neither fear nor arrogance. It was, unusual. Over the next few days, Lyra cared for him, providing food and monitoring his recovery. She introduced him to the basics of Lithra's environment, explaining the dangers of the ice plains, the behavior of native creatures, and the cultural expectations of her people. He listened attentively, asking questions not to challenge her knowledge but to understand it. Lyra began to see subtle qualities in him that contrasted sharply with the alien men she had known. He was respectful, patient, and genuinely curious. When he stumbled or made a mistake, he accepted guidance without complaint. He did not assume superiority, nor did he attempt to impress her with displays of strength or intellect. He simply existed, learning, adapting, and persisting. One evening, as they rested in a heated shelter carved into a glacier, Lyra observed the human as he examined a sample of bioluminescent moss. His eyes lit with fascination, his hands steady despite the cold. For the first time, she felt a spark of admiration, not for his strength but for his mind and spirit. He was not like any male she had ever known. Despite her growing intrigue, Lyra remained cautious. She reminded herself that admiration did not equal trust, and trust did not equal companionship. Humans were fragile. They could survive, perhaps even thrive, but they were still outsiders in a world built for Litherans. And yet, there was a lightness in his presence she could not ignore. As the human regained strength, they began to explore the region together. Lyra watched as he navigated treacherous ice formations, using logic and observation rather than brute force. When a sudden storm struck, he followed her guidance, staying calm and alert. He listened to her advice, yet offered solutions of his own. It was a balance she had rarely seen. Respect combined with initiative, humility combined with courage. For Lyra, these encounters were transformative. She had long believed alien men were the only beings capable of intellect and bravery. Yet here was a human, demonstrating both in ways that defied her expectations. Slowly, her skepticism began to shift. Perhaps humans were not weak. Perhaps their strengths were different, yet equally valuable. By the end of the week, the human had recovered enough to stand and walk on his own. Lyra observed him silently, noting his determination and resilience. He did not boast, did not seek recognition. He simply moved forward, adapting to each challenge with patience and intelligence. Lyra realized that the human's presence had unsettled her in ways she had not expected. She had always been self-sufficient, confident in her abilities and judgment. Yet now she found herself watching him with a mixture of curiosity and respect. The beliefs she had held for so long, beliefs about alien men, about the limitations of other species, were beginning to shift. As they prepared to return to the capital city for further assessment of the human's abilities, Lyra felt a quiet anticipation. This journey had started as a routine mission, a simple investigation of a distress signal. Yet it had become something more, a challenge to her long-held assumptions, a test of her openness to the unexpected. Lyra did not yet know what the future held. She only knew that she could no longer dismiss the human's presence or potential. He was not like the alien men she had known. He was something new, something she had never encountered before, and perhaps, she thought with a mixture of excitement and caution, something worth understanding. As they flew toward the city, Lyra glanced at the human, observing the calm determination in his eyes. She wondered silently what other surprises he might hold, and whether the lessons he would teach her could change not only her perspective on men, but on life itself. For the first time in her life, Lyra felt that she was on the brink of discovering something extraordinary, not just about the world, but about herself. Lyra guided the human, Ethan, through the narrow corridors of the capital city's research sector. The city floated above the jagged plains of Lithera, held aloft by magnetic fields and energy pillars that shimmered like liquid silver. Lyra moved confidently, her long strides precise and unhurried, while Ethan followed, occasionally glancing around in awe. For him, every sight was strange and magnificent. The towers seemed to defy gravity. Bridges spanned vast chasms without visible support, and the air hummed with energy that powered the city's life. Despite the beauty, Lyra's mind remained focused. She was tasked with ensuring Ethan adapted quickly to this world. She observed him as he moved, noting his coordination, stamina, and ability to remain calm under pressure. He was learning rapidly, asking questions with genuine curiosity and listening carefully to her answers. Unlike many alien men she had known, he did not display arrogance or dismissiveness. Instead, he approached every task as an opportunity to learn and improve. The council awaited them in a high chamber, filled with glass panels that offered a view of the city below. Elder scientists and strategists had gathered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Humans were rare, almost unheard of in Lithera's history. Many wondered how this fragile species could survive in a world designed for Litherans, let alone navigate its challenges with skill. Lyra stepped forward. "This is Ethan," she said. "He survived the crash on the ice plains and has demonstrated adaptability and intelligence beyond what we expected from a human. I believe he deserves a chance to prove his capabilities." Murmurs filled the room. One elder spoke, his voice dripping with doubt. "He is human, fragile, untested, and unprepared for our environment. Why should we consider him anything more than a curiosity?" Lyra met his gaze evenly. "Because he succeeded where we assumed failure was inevitable. He survived without my constant intervention, solved problems creatively, and adapted to a foreign environment. That is a mark of capability regardless of species." Ethan spoke softly. I only did what I had to do to survive. I listened, I observed, and I tried to make sense of the world around me." His words were humble yet carried an undeniable strength. The council studied him, some still skeptical, some intrigued. Lyra noted the subtle differences in his approach to the world. While alien men often relied on strength, authority, or complex technology, Ethan relied on reasoning, observation, and creativity. It was a different kind of power, one that complemented Litheran methods rather than competing with them. After a tense deliberation, the council agreed to monitor him under Lyra's supervision. He would participate in practical tasks and exercises designed to test survival, problem-solving, and adaptation. Lyra guided him to the training grounds where he was introduced to obstacles unique to Lithera: shifting ice bridges, bioluminescent predator zones, and magnetic turbulence fields. Ethan approached each challenge carefully. When he encountered the ice bridges, he observed the way the structure shifted under pressure and adapted his steps accordingly. While some alien men would have rushed forward relying on sheer strength or confidence, Ethan paused, calculated, and moved with precision. He fell once, slipping on the slick surface, but quickly regained balance, analyzing why he had faltered and correcting it immediately. Lyra watched silently, impressed. The human's methodical approach was unlike anything she had seen in her own kind. He learned not just from success, but from failure, a lesson many alien men rarely embraced. Next came the bioluminescent predator zones. These areas were inhabited by creatures that reacted to movement and sound, glowing brighter with each disturbance. The challenge was to navigate through without triggering an attack. Alien men often relied on force or intimidation, but Ethan's approach was different. He moved slowly, mimicking the rhythm of the creature's movements, observing patterns and adjusting his path. By the end of the exercise, he had traversed the zone safely, earning quiet admiration from the observing Litheran trainers. Even in moments of danger, Ethan remained calm. When a sudden tremor shook the training area, Lyra braced herself, expecting panic. But Ethan maintained focus, helping guide other trainees to safety with clear instructions and calm reassurance. His ability to remain composed under pressure highlighted a mental resilience that was rare even among seasoned Litheran operatives. Over the following days, Lyra found herself reflecting on Ethan's qualities. He did not seek praise or dominance. He was neither boastful nor submissive. Instead, he acted with purpose, thought carefully, and treated others with respect. The alien men she had encountered often relied on displays of superiority to earn recognition, but Ethan's approach was quieter, yet more effective. Their interactions grew more collaborative as they explored the city's research facilities. Ethan quickly understood complex machinery, sometimes suggesting adjustments that improved efficiency. Lyra noticed a spark of ingenuity in him that she had rarely seen in alien colleagues. When she encountered a stubborn problem with a laboratory instrument, Ethan offered a solution that combined simple human logic with her existing technology. "The device responded perfectly, you see," Lyra said quietly to herself. "This is not just survival. He understands, adapts, and improves." Ethan also displayed an unexpected sense of empathy. He noticed the exhaustion on the faces of trainees, offering encouragement and assistance. Alien men often overlooked such details, focused solely on performance or competition. Ethan's attentiveness to the needs of others created an atmosphere of trust and cooperation, further impressing Lyra. One evening, as they returned from the training grounds, Lyra and Ethan walked along a suspended walkway overlooking the city. The twin suns of Lithera were setting, painting the sky with brilliant shades of violet and gold. Ethan paused, gazing at the horizon with awe. "It's beautiful," he said softly. "I've never seen anything like this." Lyra smiled faintly. "Few have the chance to see it up close. Most focus on conquest or duty and miss the beauty around them." Ethan looked at her. "I want to learn more. About your world, your people, and about you." His words were simple yet earnest. Lyra felt a strange warmth at his sincerity. She had grown accustomed to flattery from alien men, but this was different. It was genuine curiosity and respect, not manipulation or pride. Days turned into weeks as they continued their work together. Challenges grew more complex. Simulations of environmental disasters, strategic planning exercises, and problem-solving tasks that required collaboration. Each time Ethan proved his adaptability and ingenuity. He suggested solutions that alien men might have dismissed as impossible or illogical. His approach was straightforward yet effective, demonstrating that intelligence was not a matter of species, but of creativity, observation, and courage. Lyra began to notice subtle changes in herself. She found herself listening more attentively to Ethan, valuing his opinions and seeking his insight on problems she had long considered unsolvable. The admiration she felt was no longer purely professional. It carried a personal dimension she had not anticipated. Yet she remained cautious, reminding herself that trust must be earned, and admiration did not equal reliance. Their bond deepened further when they faced a real emergency. A sudden storm swept through the city, disrupting power and threatening the stability of several floating districts. Alien men often panicked in such situations, relying on brute force or authority to restore order. Ethan, however, remained calm, quickly assessing the situation and assisting Lyra in coordinating the response. Together, they guided teams to secure structures, stabilize energy conduits, and protect civilians from harm. Lyra was impressed not only by his skills but by his composure. He did not seek credit or recognition, only focusing on solutions. His courage was quiet, practical, and effective, a stark contrast to the dramatic displays she had witnessed from alien men in similar circumstances. By the end of the storm, the city was safe and the council acknowledged Ethan's contributions. Some elders who had doubted his capabilities now regarded him with respect, impressed by his adaptability, intelligence, and leadership under pressure. Lyra, observing this, felt a growing sense of pride, not just in Ethan, but in the realization that humans could possess qualities equal to, and in some ways surpassing those of Litherans. That evening, Lyra and Ethan sat together in a quiet observation chamber. The city lights shimmered below, reflecting in their eyes. For a moment, words were unnecessary. Both understood that this partnership, born from necessity, had become something more profound. Mutual respect had laid the foundation for trust, and trust had opened the door to admiration. Lyra realized that her long-held belief that alien men were the only beings capable of intellect, courage, and reliability was no longer entirely true. Humans, she now understood, had their own strengths, often overlooked yet powerful in their own right. Ethan's presence had challenged her assumptions and begun to change her perspective on relationships, trust, and the potential of beings beyond her world. As they watched the twin suns set together, Lyra silently acknowledged that this human had not only survived Lithera, but had begun to survive her skepticism. The weeks following the storm had transformed both Lyra and Ethan. Their partnership, forged in necessity, had grown into something neither of them fully understood yet. Lyra had come to respect Ethan's intelligence, courage, and humility, while Ethan had learned to navigate Lithera's complexities under her guidance. Together they had become a team, complementing one another in ways neither had anticipated. But the peace of the city was fragile. Reports began to arrive of disruptions in the outer colonies, remote settlements where the terrain was harsh, and survival depended on quick thinking and adaptability. A series of avalanches had blocked supply routes while indigenous predators had begun encroaching closer to human and alien habitats. The council called an emergency meeting to discuss the situation, and Lyra was summoned with Ethan at her side. The chamber was tense. Advisors and scientists debated the best approach, most suggesting conventional methods. Send elite Lytheran squads, reinforce supply lines, and deploy automated drones. Lyra, however, proposed something different. "We have seen what Ethan is capable of," she said. "His perspective is unconventional, and that may be exactly what we need to solve these crises. I recommend a joint mission, Ethan and I, along with a small support team, to assess the situation and implement solutions." The room fell silent. Many elders doubted the wisdom of sending a human into such dangerous regions. "He is human," one of them said sternly. "Fragile. Unproven in large-scale operations." Lyra met their gaze firmly. "He has already demonstrated resilience and problem-solving beyond what we expected. He is capable of navigating challenges that traditional approaches cannot solve. I trust him." Reluctantly, the council agreed. Lyra and Ethan prepared for departure, equipping themselves with supplies, communication devices, and defensive tools. The terrain awaiting them was unforgiving. Jagged cliffs, ice tunnels, and active predator zones. Many had failed before, but Lyra trusted that Ethan's unique skills would complement her own knowledge. Their journey began with cautious optimism. Lyra led the way, analyzing maps and monitoring environmental sensors, while Ethan followed, observing carefully and asking questions when necessary. He did not rush, nor did he rely solely on her guidance. Instead, he applied his own reasoning, offering suggestions that often improved efficiency and safety. One afternoon, as they navigated a particularly treacherous ice canyon, disaster struck. A sudden tremor caused part of the ice bridge ahead to collapse. Lyra froze, calculating their options, while Ethan reacted instinctively. He grabbed her arm and pulled her back just as the edge crumbled into the icy chasm below. "Careful," he said, his voice calm, yet firm. "We need a new route. Follow me." Lyra watched as he examined the surrounding terrain, identifying handholds, solid surfaces, and safe paths. He moved with precision, testing each step before committing his weight. Lyra followed, trusting his judgment. In that moment, she realized that survival was not about physical strength alone. It was about observation, reasoning, and the ability to remain calm under pressure. Ethan possessed all of these in abundance. The remainder of the canyon posed additional challenges. Predators attracted by vibrations in the ice began to emerge from crevices. Alien creatures, bioluminescent and formidable, approached cautiously, sensing movement. Lyra had trained for encounters like this, but Ethan's approach was different. He studied their patterns, noticing their hesitation and communication signals. With subtle hand movements and careful steps, he led them past the predators without triggering an attack. Lyra could hardly believe her eyes. Alien men often relied on weapons or intimidation to control such situations, but Ethan relied on observation and intelligence. His method worked, and the predators remained at bay. By the time they reached the outer colony, Lyra was silently impressed. The settlement had suffered significant damage, but with Ethan's guidance, they began to implement solutions. Ice tunnels were reinforced, supply routes cleared, and predator deterrents set in place. Ethan's suggestions were practical, efficient, and often unexpected, solutions that alien men might have dismissed as impossible or too simple. The colonists, initially wary of the human, began to accept him. They observed his calm demeanor, problem-solving skills, and willingness to assist without seeking recognition. Children admired his patience, elders respected his insight, and even skeptical Lytheran guards began to acknowledge his contributions. Lyra noticed the subtle shift in her own feelings. She no longer viewed Ethan as fragile or inferior. Instead, she saw him as a partner, someone capable, reliable, and courageous. The admiration she had felt in Part 2 had grown into respect, tempered by trust. Yet she remained cautious. Lyra had learned that emotions could cloud judgment, and she needed to maintain clarity in their mission. Their work was far from over. A sudden avalanche threatened to cut off the colony entirely. Lyra and Ethan quickly assessed the situation. Alien men might have relied on brute force or heavy machinery, but Ethan proposed a different approach. Using lightweight, flexible tools and careful timing, they created a controlled path through the snow, diverting the avalanche safely away from the colony. Lyra was amazed. Every step of the process reflected Ethan's intelligence and adaptability. He anticipated problems before they occurred, remained calm under stress, and worked collaboratively with her team. His presence challenged her assumptions about humans and demonstrated that intelligence and courage were not limited to Lithuran species. After days of work, the colony was secure. The council received updates expressing cautious approval. Lyra stood beside Ethan, observing the impact of their efforts. The human had proven not only capable of survival, but of leadership, problem-solving, and innovation in an alien world. That evening, as they rested in a temporary shelter, Lyra and Ethan shared a quiet moment. Outside, the twin suns set over the icy plains, casting reflections across the snow and illuminating the distant peaks with a soft glow. Ethan looked out at the horizon, then turned to Lyra. "I never imagined I could do this," he said quietly. "I thought I was too weak, too unprepared. But I learned from you. I watched, I adapted, and I tried my best." Lyra smiled faintly. "You did more than try. You succeeded. You navigated dangers, helped others, and solved problems that many of my people would have failed at. You have qualities that cannot be measured by strength alone." Ethan looked down, slightly embarrassed. "I just did what felt right. I wanted to help and I wanted to survive. I didn't think it meant anything more." Lyra's thoughts wandered. She realized that her long-held belief that alien men were the only ones capable of intelligence, courage, and reliability was being challenged. Here was a human, showing not just survival skills but leadership, insight, and empathy. Perhaps humans were not weak. Perhaps their strengths were different, yet just as valuable and maybe even more effective in some situations. The following days brought new challenges. They traveled deeper into uncharted regions, where ancient Lithuran ruins lay buried beneath ice and rock. The structures were unstable, their mechanisms unknown, and dangers lurked around every corner. Alien men often relied on dominance or brute force to navigate such places. But Ethan relied on logic, observation, and collaboration. He deciphered ancient markings, identified weak points in crumbling architecture, and devised strategies that kept the team safe. Lyra observed him closely. Each action reflected a mind capable of understanding patterns, adapting quickly and taking calculated risks. His resilience impressed her, but what struck her most was his humility. He did not boast about his successes, nor did he seek recognition. He simply acted, solved problems, and helped others. By the time they returned to the city, Lyra's perspective had shifted. She no longer viewed humans as fragile or incapable. Ethan had demonstrated qualities that even the most accomplished Lithuran men often lacked: ingenuity, empathy, calmness under pressure, and adaptability. He had proven himself not only in survival but in leadership, strategy, and collaboration. That evening, as they prepared reports for the council, Lyra reflected on the journey. She had started this mission with skepticism, expecting to encounter a fragile human, ill-suited to the alien world. Instead, she had found someone capable, intelligent, and courageous. Someone who challenged her beliefs and inspired her to reconsider what she had thought she knew about men. Strength and capability. Ethan, unaware of the depth of her reflections, looked up from his work and smiled. "I think we make a good team," he said simply. Lyra nodded, a quiet warmth rising within her. "Yes," she replied, "we do." In that moment, Lyra realized that the human had not only survived Lithera but had begun to survive her skepticism. And she understood more clearly than ever that strength, courage, and intelligence were not limited to one species. Humans possessed their own forms of greatness, qualities that, when combined with her knowledge and skills, could achieve extraordinary results. As they left the council chamber together, Lyra felt a sense of anticipation. The mission had proven Ethan's capability, but it had also proven something else, that her beliefs, carefully held for so long, could change. And perhaps, she thought quietly, that change was only the beginning. Lyra and Ethan returned to the capital city after their mission in the outer colonies, their reputations preceding them. Reports of the human's skill, intelligence, and courage had spread quickly. Some Litherans were still skeptical, unable to fully accept the idea that a human could perform as well, or even better than their own kind. Others, however, were intrigued and inspired by the evidence of his abilities. Lyra walked beside Ethan through the city streets, observing the reactions of those they passed. Children waved shyly, elders nodded in approval, and colleagues whispered about the human who had surpassed expectations. Ethan remained modest, acknowledging greetings with polite smiles but offering no boastful words. His humility only made his accomplishments seem greater. The council requested a private audience with Lyra and Ethan to discuss future opportunities. Elder scientists and strategists awaited them in a chamber filled with holographic displays of the outer colonies, showing the improvements made during their mission. Lyra presented the data, highlighting the success of Ethan's strategies in reinforcing supply routes, mitigating predator threats and stabilizing settlements. Ethan spoke quietly. "I only did what seemed logical. I watched, learned, and acted. Lyra guided me, and together we solved the problems." One elder, a tall, silver-eyed Lytheran, nodded slowly. "Your actions have challenged many assumptions about human capabilities. You have shown intelligence, courage, and adaptability that rival even our most skilled operatives." Lyra glanced at Ethan, pride shining in her eyes. "He has earned more than admiration," she said. "He has earned trust, respect, and recognition." The council deliberated, and after lengthy discussion, they proposed a new role for Ethan. He would serve as a liaison and strategist, combining human ingenuity with Lytheran resources to address future challenges. For Ethan, the offer was both surprising and daunting. He had never imagined such responsibility in an alien world, but he accepted, trusting in his abilities and in Lyra's guidance. As they left the council chamber, Lyra felt a mixture of relief and excitement. The human had proven himself in ways she had never anticipated, and she had come to recognize qualities that alien men often lacked. His courage, intelligence, and empathy were unmatched, and she found herself drawn to him not only as a partner in work, but as something more. Over the following weeks, their collaboration deepened. Ethan adapted quickly to his new role, coordinating projects across the city and in distant settlements. His perspective brought fresh solutions to long-standing problems, and his calm, thoughtful approach won the trust of colleagues and citizens alike. Lyra worked closely with him, observing his methods and learning from his unique approach. Together, they solved problems that had challenged the city for decades. One day, they were called to assess a newly discovered Lytheran ruin, hidden beneath layers of ice and rock. The structure was ancient, with technology and architecture far beyond current understanding. Alien men had attempted to explore similar ruins in the past, often failing due to their reliance on strength and assumption rather than careful observation. Lyra and Ethan approached the ruin cautiously. Ethan examined markings, noted structural weaknesses, and proposed methods to enter safely. Lyra was impressed once again by his patience and insight. He did not rush, nor did he rely solely on technology. Instead, he observed patterns, tested hypotheses, and made decisions based on careful reasoning. Inside the ruin, they encountered complex mechanisms and unexpected hazards. Ethan guided Lyra and the support team through traps and obstacles, often noticing details that even experienced Lytherans missed. His intuition, combined with careful analysis, allowed them to navigate safely. At one point, they faced a chamber where the floor shifted unpredictably. Alien men would have charged ahead, relying on speed or strength, likely triggering a trap. Ethan studied the patterns, counted rhythms, and found a path through. Lyra followed, realizing that the human's mind saw possibilities she had never considered. By the time they emerged from the ruin, the city and council were amazed at what they had accomplished. Ethan's methods had not only ensured their safety, but revealed valuable resources and knowledge within the ruins. The human's reputation grew further, and Lyra felt a deepening admiration and respect that went beyond professional recognition. One evening, after a long day of reporting and planning, Lyra and Ethan walked along a suspended walkway high above the city. The twin suns had set, and the glow of the floating city reflected off the clouds and energy pillars. Lyra looked at Ethan, noticing the quiet determination in his eyes, the calm confidence in his posture, and the sincerity in his gaze. "You've changed this city," she said softly. "Not just through your actions, but through your approach. You've taught me that strength isn't only physical and courage isn't only boldness. Intelligence and empathy are just as powerful." Ethan smiled faintly. I didn't set out to teach anyone. I only wanted to survive, to help where I could. You guided me, Lyra. Without you, I wouldn't have made it this far. Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. She had long prided herself on independence and self-reliance, yet she realized that partnership could be equally valuable. With Ethan, she had found not only someone capable and reliable, but someone who respected her, listened to her, and worked with her as an equal. The next challenge came in the form of a natural disaster, a violent storm that threatened to flood the lower districts of the city. Alien men often reacted with displays of power or authority, but Ethan approached the situation differently. He analyzed wind patterns, predicted water flows, and coordinated evacuation and reinforcement plans with precision. Lyra assisted, amazed at how seamlessly he integrated logic, observation, and practical action. Together, they managed to minimize damage and prevent casualties. The council recognized Ethan's contributions, praising his ability to solve problems in ways that Litherans had never considered. Lyra, standing beside him, felt pride and admiration swell. She realized that the human had not only survived her skepticism, but had exceeded all expectations in every possible way. As the city recovered from the storm, Lyra and Ethan found themselves walking in the quiet of the upper terraces. Snow dusted the energy pillars and the air was crisp with the scent of ozone. For a moment, words were unnecessary. Both understood the depth of what had been accomplished, the respect earned, the challenges overcome, and the bond formed between two beings of different worlds. Lyra broke the silence. Ethan, I need to be honest. When I first encountered you, I doubted you. I doubted humans. I believed they could never measure up to the qualities I admired in my people. Ethan looked at her calm and patient. And now? He asked. Now, Lyra said, I see that I was wrong. You've shown courage, intelligence, empathy, and perseverance in ways I never expected. You've changed not only how I see humans, but how I see trust, partnership, and even myself. Ethan's expression softened. I only did what I could. I never imagined I could have such an impact. Lyra smiled. Impact is not just about what you do, it's about who you are. You've earned respect, admiration, and trust, and you've earned mine. Ethan nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. For Lyra, this was a significant admission. She had always relied on self-sufficiency and skepticism, yet here she was, acknowledging the unique value of someone entirely different from herself. The following weeks solidified their partnership. They collaborated on research, planned city improvements, and trained new teams together. Ethan's presence challenged assumptions, inspired innovation, and demonstrated that intelligence, courage, and empathy were not limited to one species. Lyra observed him constantly, learning not only from his methods but from his perspective on life, how he valued cooperation, respect, and careful reasoning. One afternoon, as they watched the bioluminescent creatures of Lithera's forests during a research expedition, Lyra realized something profound. Her belief that alien men were inherently superior was no longer valid. Ethan, in his quiet, capable way, had shown her that humans possessed unique strengths, qualities that could surpass expectations, solve problems creatively, and inspire those around them. Lyra felt a deep sense of gratitude and connection. She had not only discovered the value of this human, but had also discovered the limits of her own assumptions. Trust, admiration, and respect had grown between them, forming a foundation that went beyond friendship or professional collaboration. By the time their mission concluded, Lyra understood the truth. Humans, when given the chance, could achieve greatness alongside or even beyond Litherans. And Ethan, the human she had once doubted, had become more than a survivor or colleague. He had become a partner, a teacher, and someone who had opened her mind to new possibilities. As they returned to the city one last time before continuing their work together, Lyra glanced at Ethan, a quiet smile on her lips. You've changed this world, she said softly. Ethan shook his head modestly. We've changed it together. Lyra nodded, realizing that this partnership was more than just about survival or accomplishment. It was about respect, trust, and understanding, a bond that transcended species and challenged every assumption she had ever held.